Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're so pleased to welcome Jasmine Guillory and Alicia to Authors Uncovered. My name is Morgan Pershing, and I am the Community Engagement Manager for Sacramento Public Library. I see some people from Sacramento Public Library are here and are very excited. The talk will start at 5, so I'm going to try to, fill in the time with some information for you all while people trickle in. So a few things I'd like to tell you about goings on at the library. We have a thriving romance book club, and it meets the second Saturday of every month at 1 p.m. And we know that romance readers are among the library's most active patrons, especially in ebook land. And then some people who claim to not be into romance have become romance readers during the pandemic era because of the need of positive, joyful stories with the HEA, and that's the happily ever after. And after the last 15 months, I think that we can all agree that we could still use more of that. But we also have many other book groups. We have book groups for tweens, teens, graphic novels for adults. If you're not a graphic novel reader as an adult, please, it's worth it. And we have a sci-fi book club starting in August, and we'll put the link in the chat so you can take a look at all of our book clubs. They're still virtual. Okay, now I just have to give you my spiel about summer reading. I imagine most of you here are adults. And did you know that summer reading is for you too? I often hear, and throughout my career, adults say, oh, summer reading, it's not for me, it's for the kids. But you know what, that's just not true. There are serious reasons why you should be involved in summer reading. If you are a parent or a grandparent, you should be modeling good behavior for your kids. And as we get older, it's really important to keep our brains active. And don't you want to, at this time especially, be involved in a big community event? That connection is really important. But really, I have to ask you, when was the last time you got rewarded for reading as an adult? Probably never. Why should the kids have all the fun? If you read 5 books this summer, you will get library swag and a coupon for a free book. And I don't think it's an assumption that you're all readers. So you may as well. I mean, who could it hurt? And we're going to put the link in the chat so you can sign up for summer reading. That I would just be so pleased to see people signing up because readers came to this event. Let's see. Okay, so I just want to let you know that for Sacramento Public Library, our commitment to creating opportunities for our community is stronger than ever. Whether it's bringing one-of-a-kind author experiences, such as Authors Uncovered, we offer virtual programs for all ages, from story times to book clubs to team programming and English conversation groups. You can now visit 21 of our branches. The ones that are currently closed are going through refreshes or being updated, but we're working on getting them all open for you. And then I have some housekeeping for you. Please put your questions for the authors in the Q&A. My lovely assistant, Kayla, will be monitoring chat in case there are any technical problems. And then we have a closed captioner. So if you click on live transcript, you can see the captioning. And also, if you post in the chat, your comments will be public. So we ask that you keep the conversation civil and respectful. And anyone violating this code will be blocked. A recording of this will be made available on our website, that's saclibrary.org, later this week, as well as being uploaded to our YouTube channel. And I did not take up 15 minutes. Should we start early? What do you all think? Tell us in the chat. Should we start early or should we wait for more people to trickle in? Let me know. Yes, says Katie. Hey, I know her too. Early, yes. Okay, well then, let me introduce our speakers. Jasmine Guillory is a best-selling author of 6 romance novels, including The Wedding Date, The Proposal, and the upcoming While We Were Dating. Praised by media far and wide, including NPR, The Washington Post, Entertainment Weekly, Jasmine truly has made a name for herself. Her charismatic presence and unflagging support for a large spectrum of books and genres have propelled her beyond the realm of romance author into culture tastemaker. Guillory's sixth romance novel, While We Were Dating, will be published in July. Alicia crafts some of the best romance writing of the year. She writes award-winning, emotionally complex contemporary romance novels, and her early books are super hot. Right. Rye's books have been featured on the Indie Next and Library Reads lists, been named the best book of the year by the Washington Post, NPR, New York Public Library, Amazon, and so many more. Her current novel is First Comes Like, the second book in her modern love series. When she's not writing, Alicia is traveling or tweeting. And as with many industries of late, the romance publishing world has been forced to reckon with its lack of diversity in both voice and story. I could not be more pleased to introduce two women who lead the way in representation, Alicia and Jasmine Guillory in conversation. Take it away, ladies.
Hello, Alicia.
Hi, Jasmine. It's so good to see you.
Good to see you too. How are you?
This. I'm good. I feel like we've been seeing more and more of each other lately, so that's really nice.
Well, yes. I mean, on the computer.
On the computer, yes. I should correct myself. You know, I've almost completely forgotten. I don't know if this is for you too, like what it's like to go in person and see people. So when I see them on the computer now, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm seeing them all the time.
Yes.
Yeah, no big deal. So totally cool. But yeah, no, it has been a unique experience for sure.
Yes, I don't think this past 15 months is something that we ever thought that we would live through. So.
And you had a book release during pandemic times.
Yes, so I'm about to come up on my second, as did I think you had two.
Yes, I had two as well. And my last one was in April, but it looks like you're luckily coming out now. There's a light.
Sort of. Right, like we were sort of out, but still sort of back in. Like the world is opening up, but book events are still all inside. You know,
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you? I saw you traveled somewhere lately. Did you go on a plane?
I did. I got to see like two of my best friends and I. Usually, we all live in different places, and for the past I don't know how many years, we've like planned a trip once a year so we could see each other. Oh. And actually, luckily, our last trip was January of 2020. So we saw each other right before everything hit. And then as soon as we were all vaccinated, we were like, all right, when are we going to see each other? So that was great. We all got to do that.
That's so nice. Yeah, it's so nice just to see people again and hug them and talk to them in person. Yeah, I've sure missed it. I'm sure we're all in the same boat, but I can tell you, I mean, having had two pandemic releases now, you know, I'm a bit of an expert. You know, these Zoom events are fantastic, and I'm glad we get to go to libraries and stuff like that, which we, you know, there wasn't always a budget for that or the time, you know, to travel. So this is just a really nice way to get two people.
Absolutely. Yes.
I hope.
And we both get to be at the Sacramento Library, and neither of us is in Sacramento.
I know. Isn't that fantastic? I saw that too, and I was like, oh, wow, that's so cool. Like, I'm doing another event with Jasmine, just event after event. So tell me, maybe we should talk a little bit about our most recent releases. So why don't you introduce While We Were Dating?
So While We Were Dating comes out July 13th. It is about Ben and Anna. Ben is an advertising executive who lives in San Francisco, and he is working on a pitch for a big new client. And Anna is the actress who is starring in this whole ad campaign. And Ben and Anna have a very flirty relationship, but neither of them thinks it's going to go anywhere. And then it does. And so the rest of the book is how they deal with that.
I love that trope. Just like, oh, nothing's going to come of it.
Yeah.
Surely nothing will come of it. And then wink, you know.
We're going to stop doing this.
No, but I'll never like, oh, we're just friends. And then this just happens. And it's funny. So First Comes Like, I like how we both have our various books like Weather Girl. So this is First Comes Like, and also kind of in the same sphere. So it's about the heroine's an influencer, and the hero's an actor, and he is a Bollywood actor, and she's in America, and she's been sort of getting, all these messages from his Instagram, like his DMs, verified blue check account. And she kind of falls for him. And then when he comes to America to do his big crossover Bollywood to Hollywood career, she tracks him down because he's suddenly being really cagey, and she finds out that he has no idea who she is. So it's all been like a catfish, basically, and a very tricky one. And, of course, they're just like, oh, let's just like, paparazzi are kind of on our tail now. They caught a photo of them together, and they're like, let's just date for reasons. It's not going to be like, it'll never be love. So, we'll just date for other reasons. And then, stuff happens, shenanigans happen along the way.
Shenanigans. I like shenanigans.
Don't you though? It's nice. It's fun. Yeah. I don't know. Have you been reading a lot of romance? Because I feel like these tropes are really necessary right now.
First of all, like these are my favorite tropes, like all of them. Hollywood, we'll just pretend to date. Like those are right up there with my absolute favorites. But also like I think the two genres that I've been reading a ton of during the course of the pandemic have been romance and mystery, because I feel like mysteries also have that like, and then we catch the bad guy at the end.
Because there's
satisfaction that like I've really needed lately. Yeah.
Oh, that's actually a really good point. I didn't think about that. What mystery have you been reading anything?
Oh, I've been reading a whole bunch.
As a tastemaker.
Right, like it. My favorite, which like I started reading last summer and then like read the entire series, within like 6 weeks, are the Ruth books from Ellie Griffiths. It's like this woman who is an archaeologist professor in England, and then she sort of like the police want her to help them because they found like a dead body, and they need her to help them know if it's like a recent dead body or if it's old bones, right? Because where she lives, there's lots of old bones. And so then she sort of ends up working with the police for, 12 books. And the 13th is coming out soon, which I'm very excited about.
Oh, that's
and then obviously there's a little romance involved as well. You
can't get away from it. Like I think all the books, the best books in every genre have it. So that's good.
Yeah. The only problem is mystery, you can't always count on the romance.
That's
because
true.
They keep dragging it out throughout other books, and you're like, okay, but
and sometimes it's like it's like a one and done deal in a mystery. Like it's like the James Bond and whatever.
I'm like, but I like that other person. Can we go back to no?
No.
That's the biggest struggle for me in mystery, is that I just like I'm always just thinking, can't they just be happy?
Yeah.
They can find dead bodies together. And
so Morgan said, what is the equivalent of the HEA for the happily ever after for a mystery?
I think it's like catching the bad guy.
Finding the body. Finding like the person who got to the body.
The bad guy gets in trouble. That's the equivalent for this.
It's consequences.
Yeah,
maybe is the best. Yeah, is the best thing for it. Yeah. I agree with that. I actually, if you like thrillers at all, or if anybody likes thrillers,
here's my thing. I love mysteries, but I'm a real scaredy cat.
Are you really?
Oh, 100%. So I have like friends who recommend books to me, and they'll like, nope, you can't read this one. This one is too much for you. And so they will tell me whether the mystery like it's too scary or not. So the Ruth books are a little on the line, but I love them anyway. But some are a little too scary for me.
I see what you're
recommend a thriller for everybody else who's not as scared to have.
So this is more of a psychological thriller, but Victoria Helen Stone, who used to write romance a while ago as Victoria Dahl,
I love her books.
Yeah, they're fantastic. So she writes like psychological thrillers kind of now, but she has a series I don't remember the name of the second book, but the first book is called Jane Doe. And it's about this woman who's like a sociopath. Like she's diagnosed, as a sociopath. And the girl that she sort of grew up with and was the closest thing to love, as far as she knows, was sort of led down a dark path by this guy. And so she is out for revenge. And so she stalks this guy, gets into his life, starts to play mind games with him. Like, it is fascinating. When I was reading, like, she's such an empathetic protagonist. And when I was reading it, I was like, am I a sociopath? Because I'm really identifying with this woman. Like,
everything she's doing.
I think she's right. Kind of like, I think she's kind of right to do all this. He's a terrible person. So I highly recommend that. But, I don't think it was that scary. There was no like gore or, no blood or anything. I don't like gory things. Like, I get really, even when I watch like movies and stuff, the minute there's like a jump scare or something, I'm out.
No, when I really wanted to see Get Out. So when I went to see it, this is my level of scaredy catness. I went with a friend of mine who'd already seen it, and then who was sitting next to me and would whisper in my ear right before anything, like any kind of jump scare, any bad thing was gonna happen, like tell me what it was. So it was perfect because I could like enjoy the movie without being tense about what was gonna happen next. Books are even harder though, because I know like a movie is over in 2 hours, but a book will often take me like, a few days to a week to read. Right. And then I just like, I often will have like bad dreams about books I'm reading. And there was one book that I was reading that I really loved. Like, I look forward to reading it every night. It was kind of long, and I was like through like 60% of it, and I realized that I was having nightmares like every night. I was like, maybe you should take a break. That book for a moment.
I don't know if I've ever really gotten nightmares from a book. Definitely like visual things, like shows and movies I have. I don't think I've ever gotten nightmares.
Books much more frequently for me than anything.
Really? Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, I'll be careful what I recommend to you. I wish I had like a movie watching buddy who would come and like a little guide, like to be like, close your eyes here. Close your eyes here.
I still thank him all the time for being my little get out.
Nicest. Yeah, that is like just the nicest, because I didn't see, and that's why I don't really go see thrillers in movie theaters, like when movie theaters were a thing. But I went and saw not Get Out, the other Jordan Peele.
That one I knew was gonna be too much for me.
Oh, I was like jumping up every few minutes. It was terrible. And like, I get really freaked out by things that necessarily are freaky, but things that just look freaky. And that was one of them. Like, I could not do it. Like, a few minutes in, I was just like, why'd I come to this? This was a bad idea. And I had to sit through the whole thing, and it was terrible. Very much regret that one. Yeah, that was a rough one.
So did you also write a book during the pandemic?
Yes, I did.
So let's talk about how that was.
Oh my God, it was so hard. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's always hard to write a book. Like, it's never really like, oh, it's so easy, it flows out of me or anything. But this was just such a challenge. Like, they're like, oh, you work from home anyway, so it shouldn't have changed anything, but it changed like everything for me. Like, I used to go to coffee shops a lot. I would go to co-working spaces. Like, I'd meet friends up. We did that quite a bit. Like, I'd meet, I live in LA. There's a lot of writers here. We would meet up at the Huntington Gardens or at a coffee shop, and we'd write together. And so that way it was like a way to have coworkers without having coworkers. Cause I mean, you're pretty extroverted. I'm pretty extroverted. Like, I don't
like being alone all day.
Oh no, I hate being like, if someone just said, here's a computer and you write all day, every day alone. Like, I'm not one of those authors who can do that at all. So yeah, it was really challenging. And I wrote 2 books. I just turned in my second book, and it like the second book I think was almost harder than the first one. And
I actually, now that I remember this, also just turned in a second book that I was reading, and I agree, the second one was much worse than the first one. Because well, and also, I mean, because I had planned for While We Were Dating, my plan was to start writing it April 1st last year. Because I had I turned in edits for a book in January, and then I was like, okay, in March, I was going to this writing retreat where I was the author in residence. I was like, I will like,
Oh, that's so
I already had an
nice.
idea for this book. I was like, I'll like pull together an outline, then start writing it April 1st. That's great. And then I went to the writing retreat, and the day we got to the writing retreat was like that day that the world all fell apart. Like we're all sitting at dinner, like chatting and drinking wine, and someone looks at their phone and was like, they just canceled Broadway. And then someone else is like, Tom Hanks has coronavirus. And then it was just like everything. Like it was like the NBA canceled a game in the middle, and it was like the season's gone, like all of that stuff. And we were like, what are we all doing here together? You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I didn't write a single thing that weekend. Yes, I was frozen for like 6 weeks. I did not start writing in April.
For sure.
And yeah, and so the like beginning of it was really hard. Once I just sort of gave myself, like, I think I told my agent at least 4 or 5 times, because I had a deadline for it. I was like, I am not turning this book in on time. There's no possible way. I can't do it. And then I did ended up turning it in on time, but I think the only thing that happened was that I sort of took the pressure off of myself, because I was like, there's no way, like, if I kind of force myself to write in the way that I used to, I can't do that in the middle of the pandemic. Like, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Let alone, like,
for sure.
So I think letting myself kind of relax, and then just like kind of, I was like, oh, I'll just see if I can write something.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. Yeah. And then I think when I had to write the second book, I was like, well, I did this once already. I should be able to do it again, right? No, it was hard. It was very hard.
Yeah. It's extremely hard. I mean, I remember when I turned my first pandemic book in that I wrote, because it was due May 1st. So I was kind of in the same boat last year, and I was scrambling like that last month. Whatever basically I'd written before, I looked at it, after March 13th or whatever, and I was like, none of this feels real anymore. Like it felt like a different, like an alternate universe almost, where, all the stuff that's happening in the real world isn't happening now. And so, I mean, I did the best I could, and I sent it to my editor, and she replied back like after, she'd read it and stuff. And she was like, this feels a little bit more first drafty than your usual books. And I was like, you have no idea, buddy.
Yeah.
And so and that was First Comes Like, and then I had to kind of take it back. And, luckily I had enough time, they baked enough time into the schedule that I could get more time on a second draft. So I talked to my editor, we figured it out a little bit, what the problems were. And part of it was just that, the world that I was writing just didn't feel right anymore. And so some people have caught it, not too many have, but First Comes Life is kind of set in like a post-COVID world. So like, there's still some remnants, some psychological, I think, effects. Cause I was like, there's no way these characters, she was a, secondary character from another book. So her parents like were doctors. Like, I was like, I can't change any of that. That's all baked in. So I got to keep rolling with it. And there's no way that she hasn't been affected by this whole global issue that we're having. So, especially because it was like an international kind of romance, like he's from another country. So it was all a little bit messed up. So I was like, I don't know what the world's going to look like. It came out in April of this year. I was like, I don't know what the world's going to look like, or I'm sorry, it came out in February. What's the world's going to look like in a year, but I'm just going to write it this way and hope it's kind of true to life. And so
that's exactly what I had to do kind of in my mind when I was writing While We Were Dating. I was like, because I knew, going in, I sort of knew this book was going to be about Ben, who is a character from one of my other books also. And Anna, who is like a movie star. Those were kind of, I had a very different plot, but those were really the things that I knew going in. And then I was like, I don't know how to write a book like set in present day when this is what's present day, but I don't know what it's gonna look like next summer when this book presumably will come out, if the world stays alive that long. So I just had to, in my mind, think of it as like for the after, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the only way that I could get a handle on how to do it.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, it's hard because it is romance and you do want it to be escapism, but at the same time, I mean, we are writing for real people. And so it's not like you're creating art in a vacuum that's like devoid from real life. We are in real life, and we have to sort of respond to real life. And so, and that's one of the things I really like about contemporary romance, actually. Like one of my favorite contemporaries that I read back in the 90s. I remember I picked it up. It was like a Teresa Medeiros book or something like that. It was a time travel. And it felt like a time travel when I picked it up, even though it wasn't supposed to, because the first page, they're talking about faxing something and are like, you know, using a beeper. And I was like, oh, this is fantastic. Like this is such a, but that's good. Like it's good that things get a little dated, I think, because it's like, oh, this is like such a great snapshot of when it was written.
Time.
This is what the world will look like at this time. And I kind of really love that. So I was like, well, this is what the world's going to look like, hopefully at the time that this book comes out. And, you know, maybe it'll reflect the reality for people around them. And so far, so good. But yeah, a few people were like, oh, like I noticed she scans a barcode for a menu. Is that? And I was like, yeah, you got it. Good job. Which by the way, I think is one of the best things ever, like the barcode.
Totally.
Like, let them keep that forever.
When I first did that in a restaurant, I was like, oh, wow, this is great. Yeah.
It's genius. Genius.
They can just like keep updating it. It's easy. Stop printing out menus. Sure. Yeah.
I mean, like the things I was talking to somebody about this yesterday, I was like, when we're forced to adapt to things, like we're just genius. Like we're like, humans are so smart when we have no other choice but to adapt to things.
Well, I mean, last March, nobody knew what Zoom was.
I know. Isn't that and why didn't Skype come up? I don't know.
I really just fell down on the job. I mean, they've been around forever. And then all of a sudden it was just all Zoom and
I mean, I would use it as a verb. And now honestly, like I could never use it as a verb for anything. Let's see. Just checking the questions real quick. Oh, Erica says they're reading The Wedding Date for the July book club book. That's nice. Yeah. Oh, here's a good one. What's your writing process?
Well, I mean, as we've discussed, it really changed.
What was your pre-pandemic writing process and what is different now? Let's do it that way.
I mean, I think it's really gone through a few things, right? Because like when I first started writing and publishing, like I was still working full time. And so at first I was like working during the day. I'm more of an evening person than a morning person. Mm-hmm. So I would like write at night. And so I would like come home from work. Well, sometimes I would bring my laptop to work. Like when I wrote The Wedding Date, I was the first sort of half of that, the first draft, I wrote during NaNoWriMo. And so I was like writing really fast. So I would bring my laptop to work with me, go to Starbucks across the street for like 30 minutes at lunchtime, write some, and then come home and then write a bunch more at night. And I did that really, I mean, except for, you know, I didn't do the lunchtime thing for most of the books, but for my first 3 books, I kind of wrote in that way. I would like go to work during the day, come home at night, like write for anywhere from like 30 minutes to 2 hours, depending on how the day was going. And, you know, and I would always sort of tend to track my word count and like put myself on a schedule and stuff like that, because I'm a person who kind of needs structure in my writing. So that was very helpful for me. Then I started writing full time, and that structure that I had kind of all fell away because I was used to, you know, only having 2 hours a night to write. So I did it, and then I had all day, and then I would still write at night, and I'd be like, Jasmine, it's 9 o'clock. What you doing? You had all day. but I was just so used to that as being my writing time that I had to kind of forcibly change myself to be able to write during the day, because it was just like such a habit for me. So I think
that's actually one of like the big myths, is when someone is like, oh, when I quit my job, I'll be able to write so much more. And that's not always the case.
No.
And
also, I mean, honestly, what quitting my job did was it made me be able to do a bunch of the other author stuff a lot easier. But I didn't write all that much more time. Like I would probably, I probably added maybe 30 minutes to an hour to my writing schedule each day, but like not a ton more, because there's only so much I can think in a day. I mean,
Right.
that's like, it's,
Yeah.
you know, and in my mind, like, I just need a certain amount of time to think through things.
Mhm.
So forcing myself to write, 2,000 more words a day wouldn't have done anything. I would have just deleted that,
Yeah.
I mean, it would have just not worked. And so, and I mean, I kind of know that I have like a natural amount of writing I can do every day. And so when I sort of get there, I let myself stop. But yes, but like not having a day job meant that I could like travel more or do other kind of stuff that it was hard to do if I was like at work in a place all day.
Right.
And then there was pandemic. And then everything fell apart. I mean, first of all, I went back to only writing at night because like, but it was even later. Like when I first started while we were dating, I was like, for that first month that I was working on it, I really only wrote sometime between like midnight at 1 a.m. That was really my writing time, whatever. I hand wrote the entire first draft because I think, and usually I will start something handwriting it because it's sort of me like tricking my brain, like because the first like a blank Word document is terrifying to me.
Yeah. Oh, for me too.
Like,
but when you say you handwrite it, I mean, do you do like dialogue and everything or just like an outline?
No, the entire first draft I hand wrote.
Wow.
Like over 100,000 words.
I can't imagine doing that. My hand would cramp. Like your hand wasn't like.
Oh, my hand did not enjoy it. I mean, that was not good. But it happened mostly because like, so I usually start like the first maybe 1,000 words I will like handwrite, and then I will type them up, and then I'll be like, see, look, I have words in a document, and I can keep going, and I just keep typing. And this time I started writing something, but the idea of, because like I started May 1st. Of last year, and the idea of like writing a book was still too scary at the time. So I was like, I'm just writing stuff in a notebook right now.
Oh, that's nice.
It's just stuff in a notebook. And then I just kept going, and eventually I was like, I'm gonna have to type all this up, aren't I?
Oh no.
It's no good. So I did like eventually start typing as I was, but then like I kept writing in the notebook because I was many chapters ahead.
Oh my God.
And so that just like kept going until I got to the end of the first draft. It is not something that I would recommend, but it works for this book.
That's fantastic.
I had a moment of panic when because I was like, my goal was to like eventually, my eventual goal was to like catch up with the typing where I was in the notebook. But I was starting to get to the end of the notebook, and I was like, oh no, what am I going to do? Like, how am I going to keep writing when I get to the end of the notebook if I'm not in the, and then I thought, oh, I can just buy a new notebook.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like that. So that's
buy one. Oh my God. If you open like one of my closet doors, like notebooks would just tumble out.
I know. I have notebooks, but I needed to have the exact same kind of notebook.
Oh, okay. All right. That's different. I understand that.
Yes, I needed to have the exact same kind of notebook that I started in for like, so I really filled up because it's a pretty thick notebook. So it was like 2.5 notebooks.
Wow.
With the first draft.
I cannot even imagine like writing a whole book. I mean, my hand's hurting just thinking about writing a book like that. Well, good. I mean, but you know what? Whatever gets it done. And that's what I always, whenever a younger author asks me, how do you write a book? I'm like, however you can.
Yeah.
Whatever gets you to the end is a good way to do it. Like that is totally up to you. I mean, I definitely use notebooks and pen and paper for outlining. Like I think better when I'm doing it like that. But my hand definitely is not up to writing 100,000 words.
There were also lots of times my handwriting is terrible. So there were lots of times
that is the other thing.
And I was like, what word is, what was I saying?
Honestly,
when I do CL, it looks like D. So I was like, is that dear or clear? I don't know. It could be either.
Wow.
Keep going. Yeah, it was a whole mess, but it worked. And even, the second book that I wrote during the pandemic, I did not write that way. But there were a few times when, there would be something in the book and I would kind of switch and handwrite it and realize like I think in a different way.
Oh, for
So
sure.
I would kind of like let myself do that sometimes, and
Mhm.
it really helps me kind of get through. If I'm struggling with something, it kind of helps. Like brainstorming works for me a lot better
Yes.
on paper. I don't know why.
Me too. And I've tried to fight it because I hate having so many notebooks. And I mean,
Yeah,
I love buying notebooks, but I don't really like
yeah,
to use them. And so I hate having all this paper lying around. So I got like an iPad and a pencil. And I was like, I'll use the iPad and the pencil. But there was just nothing that
exactly.
replaces a pen and paper. And I don't know why that is. But
Yeah,
I brainstorm on paper. I'll do like little family trees. I'll do like, okay, here he is in the center and here's all the people around him or like the characters, you know. But no, I've never, I don't think there's a pandemic deep enough that would get me
yeah.
to write. When you said you wrote it in paper, I was like, oh, okay. She did like outline chapter by chapter on paper. You know, I thought maybe like 20, 30 pages in a notebook or something. No, you wrote the whole thing.
No, but it was good.
Do you think you'd do it again?
I don't know.
Mhm.
You know, it was. I didn't think I was going to do it the first time.
Mhm.
Definitely not. If I did it again, I would definitely start the typing process earlier because
Mhm.
actually, weirdly, that was the most stressful thing. Was
For
like
sure.
kind of getting it all into a computer because then there was a time when I was like, what if my house burns down and I don't have a backup, you know? And so then I was like getting obsessive about that. So I would bring the notebook with
You
me
just sleep with the
wherever.
notebook.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you just like keep it like under your shirt at all times. Just in case.
Because usually when I'm working on a book, I'm very obsessive about backing it up.
Oh, me
And
too.
so then I
Yeah.
was like, I have no backup. It's just a notebook. So I think I would definitely do, start the typing a little earlier.
Very much
And
so.
I mean, I think I will do more kind of switching back and forth a little bit because it was
Mhm.
also nice to be able to just like sit in my car. So like, especially because it was a pandemic, there were many places you could go.
Oh, yeah,
So
so
it
you
was
just
nice to
sat with
have
a
a
notebook.
change of like
Yeah.
sit in my car and write
Yeah.
since I could not go to a coffee shop or anywhere else really. Yeah.
No, I know. I mean, I know people who like wrote in their bathtubs during the pandemic.
Um,
Like I wrote anywhere, because it does get a little bit, rough to just sit in one spot, I think, for a lot of people. I don't know. Some people are good at it. I'm not. And I know a lot of people who aren't. So, but yeah, write in your car or write in a bathtub or write,
yeah.
wherever you can get your questions put together. I mean, I do use a lot of paper. I don't think I have any like one process for every book. And I think um I don't know if that's unusual or not. It sounds like you're kind of the same way that, everything can change. Sometimes I have like a bulletin board here that has nothing on it because I used it for one book and then I've never used it again for anything else. But I did like for that one book, it looked like so organized, like I had index cards and like
Oh yeah.
I would take a card down when I was done with it and I put some like
Oh, amazing. Yeah.
and now it's just empty, full of like colorful bulletin. But I mean, it looks nice. So I'm glad I picked one with like a nice frame at least.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the pandemic, like I found something that worked for me was because also I did not like seeing an empty Word document, was that I would do like Write or Die. Have you heard of that program?
I have
It's
heard of it, but tell me more about it.
Yeah, so it's a program that basically you set a certain time limit and a certain amount of words. And if you pick up your hands for too long off the keyboard, it starts like blaring a noise, or like a giant spider will appear on your screen, or something bad will happen. Unless you like spiders, in which case it's not bad, I guess. But so it kind of punishes you for not typing. And so I would do that. I would set it for half an hour, 1,000 words, and I would just type like furiously. I'd be like, I know what scene I'm writing. I'm just going to type. And then I would take, it's like a separate sort of word processor. So I'd copy paste it. I'd copy paste it into my Word document. I'd be like, look, I already have 1,000 words. And then I'd, move from there. And sometimes I would do that for a couple thousand more just to get something more down. And then I'd go and revise that. And for me, that works so much better because otherwise, like you said, looking at that empty document is just such a terrible feeling when you're already kind of
Boy.
disillusioned
Yeah.
and hopeless. But yeah, it's nice to hopefully come out of this and with a couple of new skills on how to give.
Yeah. It was also, I will say, one of the good things about like kind of writing and then typing was that my first drafts, like this has been standard throughout all of my books. My first drafts are garbage.
Yes.
Because like I am very much a like just sort of push a first draft out of my head. I do not go back and edit it at all. And then I revise it in the second round. And so there are a lot of times when I like midway through a draft, I realize, oh, this big thing needs to change at the beginning. And I just like, I'm like, pretend it has already happened. And then I keep writing as if that change had already happened. And then like in the second draft, I'll just sort of fix it. But
I do that quite a bit too. But like I get very tripped up if it's something so major that like I genuinely can't think any further until I fix it. And then I have to go all the way back to the beginning and fix it all the way.
Sometimes that has happened for me.
Yes.
I mean, very unfortunately, the second pandemic book that I wrote, luckily it wasn't halfway through the book, but when I was like 30,000 words in, I realized that a real core thing had to be different. And so then I just started from the beginning.
Oh yeah. I mean, like
terrible, but I was like, I need to rewrite this. Like I can't keep going. And I tried for like 2 days.
Oh,
and
I try every time where I'm like, I just want to get the first draft done and then I'll fix the whole thing.
Yeah.
But I realize like after a point, I'm just spinning my wheels or I'm writing like very bare scenes then, which I know I'm going to have to spend more time fixing later on. So I go all the way back to the beginning, start from there, fix it all the way through. And then I'm like, okay, now I'm more even keeled and I can keep going.
Or like even with, sometimes I've written scenes that I knew weren't going to make it in just for me. So like for my third book, The Wedding Party, I was kind of midway through the book and I was like, I need to write a prologue of like because these were two people who didn't like each other and we knew that they had met years ago. And I was like, I need to write that first time that they met each other, like just so I know it. And that never ended up in the book and I never really thought it was going to, but I needed it just for like my own background to be able to write the rest of it. So yeah, so I like jumped back to the beginning, wrote that prologue, and then the second draft I was like, all right, delete. That was easy, but it just like helped me.
I almost always write some kind of prologue, even if it's just like a summary of events that have happened before the book starts, because otherwise it's so easy to go into that first chapter and just dump everything into that. And then I'm like, no, I know what's already happened. Other people will find out through the course of the book what's happened. But as long as I know what's happened, then I don't need to do that.
But the nice thing about typing up the first draft a little while after I'd written it was by the time I typed up certain stuff, I already knew certain things like would change or I could fix them. So I just kind of fixed them. So my first draft was more of a like,
as you typed it.
Yeah. Or like there was like a whole chapter. I was like, no, none of this is happening. And I just didn't type up that chapter and then sort of sped things up. So that was the nice thing about it. The not nice thing was everything else.
Eugenie noted that I've heard many men who have written books longhand, but their wives typed the book out, which, I mean, if I had a wife, this would all go a lot smoother. If I had a devoted wife, yes, a lot of things would get done. Here's also a related question. What kind of work did you each do when you were working full-time and writing during your free time? Kind of touched on it, but we have kind of similar answers, I think, to that.
We were both lawyers.
We were both attorneys. Yes. It is a common thing in romance landia to have.
There are many of us. Yeah.
We are legion in romance. So, but yeah, what kind of attorney were you? I don't know if I know that.
I have done a number of different kinds of work as a lawyer. I worked for big law firms, and I worked for legal aid for a while, and I worked for a foundation. So I kind of juggled a lot of.
That's fantastic. Yeah. That's great. Yeah, I also worked for a law firm for a while. Hated it with a passion. Wanted to get out of there as quickly as possible, but I did mostly tax law, so like employee benefits and healthcare reform and stuff like that. So, but very happy to get out of a law firm. Yeah. There's two, like either you love being in a law firm or you hate it. It's like,
I know a lot of former.
It's a good thing to get out of sometimes.
I've made very good friends at my law firm. I will say.
I
Some
no.
of my closest friends.
Misery loves company, right?
Yes,
Like my
yes,
best friends came out of my law firm.
yes.
Yes, that's true.
Yes.
Do you have any favorite recipe foodie themed romances, or do you feel inspired to do such yourself? I think we both love food. And I think we both put a lot of food in our books. Yeah, I love food. I'm a little bit of a foodie myself. But I think in all my books, but I think serving pleasure is actually like kind of revolves around food. It's one of my it's a little older, it's a little spicier. But it's the heroine works in a restaurant, so that I think that's probably my most foodie issue.
I think that was the first of your books that I read, actually.
It's an older one, but yeah, it's definitely people's favorites for a few reasons. But definitely a little bit spicier if you like that.
Yes, I love that book.
There
was a book that I read last year, and now I'm blanking on the name of it. It was like set in New York City, and they were both chefs. And there was little like magical realism in the book.
Yes. What book is that? Because I think I know what you're talking about.
It was a debut. I will try to remember the name.
As will I. I know of one where they were both. Was it A Touch of Sage? Was that?
Yes, that was it.
Yes.
Thank you. A Touch of Sage. Yes.
Very cute. I like that one. Who wrote that? Yafa? Santos. There we go. Yes. Very cute book. I'm glad you brought that one up. That's an excellent like foodie themed book.
Yes.
What was your favorite relationship to write? Either romantic, familial, or friendly? Oh, that's a good question.
You know, I have a bunch of family relationships in my books, and I will say I do really love writing kind of the sibling relationships. I have a lot of fun with. Like in this one, while we were dating, Ben's brother was the hero in another book, and so their like brother relationship comes up a lot, both in the previous book and in this one. So I found that kind of really fun to write. And then I think there are a lot of like good friend relationships. Like I love the kind of friendship in the proposal. I love a lot. So I had a lot of fun with all of those.
Oh, that's so nice. Yeah, I like doing kind of like found family. So maybe not like actual familial relationships, but the sort of the friends who become family along the way. Those are really special to me. And I think that there's just something really special about that, like not being born into a family and then sort of adopting one as you get older, or you grow into one. But yeah, siblings are really. Do you have siblings?
I have a sister. Yes.
Older or younger?
Younger. Yeah.
Oh, you're the oldest. That's nice.
Yes.
I'm a proper middle child, so. As authors, how did you learn character development? Did you take a special course, learn from a book? Thank you. No courses. I never took any courses.
Me neither. I read a lot of books. I mean, I think that's really it. Like I just read a lot of books. Not like writing books, but just books. Like I've read, I've loved fiction my whole life, and I've read a lot of it. I didn't start writing until I was like relatively late in life. And so I feel like the thousands of books that I have read throughout my life.
Not really late. Not really.
Like I know so many people who were like, I started writing when I was 7 years old, and like that was never my story.
Right.
But I think just like reading a lot of books really helps, and in really thinking. I mean, I think I've had like good friends who have been the people who have like read all of my stuff early, and so having people who I can really trust who early on would be like, yeah, but like, why are they doing that? How are they feeling about it? Like those are really the big questions that I have in my head at all times. And so that really helps me kind of think through who a character is and why, because often I will kind of start with the plot, but once I figure out who a character is, the plot will change, because sometimes the person who does like A, B, and C no, they're not going to do that last thing that I had them do, you know? And
Right.
so I have to like kind of keep thinking about who a character is as I'm writing. Because a lot of times, I mean, part of the reason like my first drafts are garbage is that I'm usually figuring out who the characters are
Yes,
throughout
agreed.
that first draft. Because I always start with an outline, but like I don't know who the people are. I just kind of have an idea for a plot, and the plot doesn't work unless you like really know who those people are. And so so then like by the end of the first draft, I'm like, oh, okay, I understand this well a little bit now. And then I kind of keep going and going until I feel like I've really gotten it.
Yeah. I mean, I think pretty much kind of the same here. Like it takes me a while to get to know someone, but I tend to start with characters first and then develop a plot around them. So I know them fairly well by the time the book starts, but absolutely like you throw things in their plate and you have to see how they're going to react to it. And sometimes they react in different ways and you have to figure out, like, okay, well, why am I having them react this way? Like, what is it about their character that's making him do that? I don't know. You didn't take any writing courses, right? You didn't. And I really do think.
No, other than like the how to write a legal brief classes that I took in law school.
Yeah. Legal writing is not quite the same, though. I just think that being a lawyer does make you a better writer for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, and it really teaches you in terms of, translating over to fiction work, just sort of taking out the stuff that is going to bore people or like make them stop reading. Cause that was our whole job, right? Is to make sure nobody put down what you're reading. Like if they stop reading, then you just lost. So that's how I translate it over. But yeah, I think for me, this is something that it just takes a lot of like self-study in terms of reading other people's books and reading in the genre that you're writing in. Like it better be a genre you really love because you're going to be doing a lot of reading in it and watching movies and going to coffee shops and watching people and seeing how they react to things like that stuff.
Paying attention to people in airports and
like I think that was honestly like one thing that really hurt me in the pandemic was that I spent so much time people watching that, I do think like it was hard to overcome that hump of not getting to do that anymore. For sure.
Yeah, or just like the casual conversations I would have with people that give me ideas, for like whatever I was writing. Like I remember I was working on Royal Holiday, which is like a book about a woman in her 50s who has, who was a single mom and her daughter is in her 20s and stuff. 30s actually, but and they like go on vacation and she falls in love. Well, I was traveling to a book festival, I think, and got to have lunch with a friend of mine from college and her daughter, right? And this friend was like now a single mom, and she said something casually about what it was like to date as a single mom, and I was like, and I wasn't interviewing her about that. It wasn't on, but like we were just talking, and like little things like that. I have missed being able to like think about that and talk to people and use it in a way that there's certainly there's certain things that I have actively reached out to people to ask questions about for books. It's different than being able to just talk to someone all day and then think, oh wait, that's perfect, and write it down.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. I mean, there's like, I'm a thief kind of like, I hear something and I'm like, oh, that's actually perfect for this character, and I translate it of course into my book or whatever and make it, more mine. But for sure. Yeah, it's been tough. And actually kind of related to that, if you've encountered writer's block or burnout, what is your recipe to reinvigorate yourself and begin again?
Yeah, I mean, before the pandemic, I try to build into my writing schedule break times so that I'm not going from turning a book in to immediately starting a new one, because I just the well is dry at that point, and so I will try to go on vacation right after I finish a book, or visit friends, or go out into the world and do things. And then I couldn't do any of that for many months. So that was a challenge. I did manage to sort of try to go a few different places during the pandemic. I started just driving randomly around because I realized at some point last summer that, because I was like driving to Target and I had this idea as I was driving, and I realized, oh, this often happens to me, that I'm like driving somewhere familiar and I like will have good ideas as I'm listening to music. The problem was I haven't been doing much of that, because I would like, the two places that I would go were to the grocery store, which was very near my house that I did not have to drive that far to Target, and then occasionally to my mother's house. But like even at the very beginning of the pandemic, I was not going to my mother's house because I was terrified of doing that, and then kind of figured stuff out, and so I was doing that. But so I was like, I need more, you know, because sometimes I will have ideas in that like times when your brain is not quite shut off, like alert, but you're not really doing anything. So I would drive places that were like vaguely familiar, that I wasn't like, oh, paying attention to directions for. And then just listen to music, and then would have good ideas for that. So it would like drive from my house to my childhood home that I had not been to for a while, or like, you know, just like randomly drive around the Bay Area, and probably not great for the environment, but was very helpful for my, and this was also, by the way, at the time when we could not like go for walks in California because of the fires. And so I was like, I need to get out of my house, first of all. And I need like, something else. I need to see something else other than like the four walls of my apartment. And so that was actually very helpful for me in just like looking at different things out of my car, you know, like driving down to the water and like looking at the water and like things like that. Very helpful.
Yeah, I drove to a bunch of places that I probably otherwise wouldn't have gone to, and something I liked. I mean, I like I said, I was a foodie. I'm a foodie, and so I would go to restaurants that normally I would never go to because I'd be like, oh, that's too expensive, and then I'd be like, well, I'm not doing anything else right now. So I would, you know, redirect some money that way. And I'd be like, oh, I'll just get takeout. And so I would get takeout at a place that, you know, I wouldn't normally go to because it would be such a splurge. So that was sort of my reinvigorating, but it was tough during the pandemic for sure. I love your idea of taking a trip though. I know sometimes you take like, you know, lovely beach vacations and stuff. I'm like, I'm gonna do that.
Yeah. I usually try to plan some sort of break in, you know, after I turn in the book, is like,
I just like collapse in a heap and I don't do actually anything. So it's better to go somewhere and do something.
Like I collapse in a heap on a beach chair.
Yeah, that's better. That's better.
As opposed to in my bed.
In my dirty apartment. Yeah.
Exactly.
So I'm like hesitant to break in because Alicia, you're such a pro and you're already looking at the Q&A and you have such a flow, and that we were getting worried. We were texting like, what if they answer all the questions? But there are questions, and I have questions in case we didn't have enough questions. So
I think we have plenty.
We have lots of questions.
So I want to get to some of them.
Yeah. So, well then, you know what? Go forth.
No. Are you sure?
Okay.
No.
Well, I mean, if there are ones that you would rather answer that are more interesting to you, that's your choice.
No, why don't you take over, Morgan?
All right. I'll be in charge.
Yeah.
So I really love this question, and maybe I'm biased because I love the person who asked it, but Katie DeCourt asks, what is your favorite part or piece of your most recent covers?
That's a good question. For me, for the Modern Love series, every book, and I'm really glad they could do this because I really wanted them to do it, but if you can see the right swipe, the little T is an arrow. And Girl Gone Viral, there's like a little Instagram thing. And then for First Comes Like, there's a little play button. So I was like, oh, I love that. I love that little part of it. So it's very small. It's probably nobody but me really pays attention to it, but I think it's really cute.
I love that. That is so cute. I really love the cover for While We Were Dating because they usually when we like go through covers, it's funny because, and this is also like a testament to how wonderful my publishing team is. I was, as I said to Alicia, like I kept saying, I'm not going to turn this book in on time. And then once I kind of knew that I had hit a roll and that I might actually do it, but I still didn't want to talk about it. And so my editor sent me this email and was like, so do you have a title for the new one? And I was like, no. And she was like, okay, just asking. It's okay. And then like a few weeks later was like, no pressure. But you know, we just need maybe a working title. Do you have ideas for like a cover or something? And I was like, no. And then eventually I was like, okay, fine. This is, I think, what it's about. There is no ending yet, but hopefully it's a good one. And then I kind of had cover ideas for them, and then they came up with this, which was wonderful. My favorite are the palm trees. I just love them there in the background.
Oh yeah, they're really cute.
But
Do you-
I love
Really cute.
cover.
Do you end up having a lot of input on your covers, or at some point are publishers like, this is what you're getting?
It's usually just a conversation, like, because I usually tell them stuff before they start it, and then they'll send me a draft and we'll kind of go back and forth. So there's never really a time where they're like, okay, we have to stop talking about this. It's more just like, okay, everybody likes it now, and then like that's how it is.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I know there's some authors who get stuck with covers they hate. I've been really lucky. I think my editor is really wonderful about working with me to get a vision. And usually like we'll narrow it down to like one or two things, and then, you know, maybe they'll go pick which one out of those like two or three that they really like, and or that, I don't know, like Barnes and Noble really likes or something like that. You know, they kind of, there's a whole lot of decisions that go on that side that, you know, we aren't really privy to. So, you know, sometimes things get changed without our really knowledge, and we don't know till later that it's because of marketing or because of sales or
Right.
something like that.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay. An anonymous attendee asks, what advice about writing or publishing did you find helpful as women of color romance writers? What do you wish you had learned sooner?
That's a great question.
That is a really good question. Jasmine, do you have a
You know,
response?
somebody asked a similar question when I did an event with Taylor Jenkins Reid a few weeks ago, and her answer to like what you wish you learned sooner was such a great answer that I'm going to steal it, which was like, if you're invited into a room, if someone wants you to do something, you're there for a reason. Like, they're not, publishing is a capitalistic world. They are not going to like want to publish your book if they really don't believe in it, right? Like, they're not going to give you money, any sort of amount of money or any sort of publishing deal, if they don't think that it will work. So you like, don't be hesitant, don't be afraid to like voice your opinions and say what you think and say what you want, because all like, and I think like all they can say is no. You know, they're not going to take away your publishing deal. They usually want you, like, as we talked about covers, right? Like, they want you, like, your publisher wants an author to be happy with a cover. So it's usually not a like my way or the highway kind of thing, because it's a collaborative process. And so that is, I think, something that I think I went in thinking like, I am the small person here and then they are the big people. But that is not the case. Like, the reason publishing exists is because of the books that we give them. And so you like, your opinion and like your words really do matter in this whole situation. And that took a while to learn. I'm still learning it. But yeah, it's sometimes hard to ask for things, but
Yeah, I love that. I think mine would probably be something similar in that, you know, we all sort of have to deal with imposter syndrome to a certain extent. And the minute anything good happens, it's very easy to say like, oh, I don't deserve it, or I shouldn't have this, or this shouldn't, you know, come to me. And I think at the end of the day, you do have to have a certain degree of confidence to say, no, I've worked really hard to be here and I do deserve this. And this is what you get when you work really hard. So, you know, it's good to be humble, and it's good to be, you know, conscious of maybe going a little too far, but I think it's perfectly fine to have the confidence to say, I deserve this. I deserve to be here. I'm not an imposter. I don't not belong here. I definitely belong here. Somebody else recognized that my hard work put me here, and really own it, because, you know, at the end of the day, this is a kind of a lonely profession. I mean, we have friends, Jasmine and I talk all the time, you know, you might have a lot of people, you know, in this industry, but it's just you and your computer when it comes down to sort of brass tacks. So you do need a certain degree of confidence to say, okay, deep breath, blank page. I can do this.
There have been questions kind of hinting at mentorship and who inspired you. Can either of you speak to either mentor or a favorite author or someone who has helped you in this profession?
Oh gosh, so many. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't think
so
there's
many.
any single person. I don't think I would be here without all the authors who sort of came before us and concurrent with us. Um, and I hope that the ones who come after us can kind of say the same thing, because uh, it really is just, one person winds the door and then the other one winds it a little bit more, and then, so on and so forth. So I can tell you, when I was getting started, I started in digital publishing and then I moved to self-publishing. And then when I went to New York, um, it was partially because I share an editor with Beverly Jenkins, and Beverly actually mentioned her, like, oh, have you heard this author? Like, I really like her books. And that was why she read it. And that's why she contacted me. So there is no me, without Beverly Jenkins. But even if she hadn't done that, there would be no me without Beverly Jenkins. There would be no me without a lot of the authors who, especially in romance, kind of came before us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think there's so many people, Alicia included, who I have been able to ask questions to throughout this, because I think one of the things about publishing is also that it's a foreign language. I mean, there's so much about publishing that goes on that I mean, this will be my 6th book. I've been doing this for 4 years now. I still sometimes will get emails and I'm like, I don't know if I'm what does that term mean exactly? And especially at the beginning, I did this meeting at my publishing house like a few months before the wedding date came out, with like my agent and my editor and like my publicist and all that, talking about all the stuff. And afterwards I was like, what are they talking about, to my agent? Because I mean, some of it, like, they all sounded exciting, but I was like, I don't know what those words mean, or at least I knew what they mean, like individually, but not put together. And so it's great to be able to like have authors who you can ask these questions to, or just ask like, or ask like, does this feel weird? Like, is this a normal thing? Or like, is this person always that weird? Like that kinds of stuff. And so there's so many other authors that I am so grateful for. Like Alicia is one of them, Beverly Jenkins, Roxane Gay, who's been wonderful, like just a ton. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's so nice.
Yeah. This really is, like, I think especially in romance, like it is, of course there's people who want to gatekeep and, close it off, but there is an equal amount of people who are just very warm and welcoming and want you to succeed. And that's not, I mean, it definitely wasn't true at the law firm I worked at. It's not common in a lot of industries. So it's lovely when you find someone who can, even if it's just to say, I mean, I remember when I first got my first statement from New York, from my publisher, and publisher statements are notoriously difficult to read. Like I was a tax attorney and I could not make heads or tails out of the statement. And I looked at like all the sales, and I finally like just scanned it and emailed it to a couple of friends who had been in the business a lot longer. And I said, is this good? Like, am I doing good? Or am I doing bad? Am I doing medium? What am I doing here? Like, what are these numbers? And they broke it down for me. And because I was like, I could email my agent, I guess, but let me try someone else first before I go bother them. So yeah, it's a great industry.
I love that it's such a supportive community. That's really like where you want to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So an interesting question came up in the chat. How much involvement do you have with the audiobook versions of your books? And do you give input on how certain scenes should be read?
For me, not the latter, but I get to pick the narrator. So that's fun. And then, little things, sometimes they'll like ask me questions of, how are names pronounced, or like things like that. But usually I don't have, other than like those little questions and picking the narrator, I don't have a ton of control or over that.
Yeah, same with me. They give me sort of a list of people, and they're like, who are your top you know, 2 choices for each gender. And then they go from there. But I think they do such a fantastic, I could never do what they do. Like I listen to some of them and it is like it's like a movie they're making, but just with their mouths. It's fantastic to listen to and it's so much fun. But yeah, I the most involvement I think I got like is, you know, they'll send you things like, how do you pronounce this? Or occasionally once or twice, like I think one of them has said like, this particular scene, we're just trying to like struggling with it a little bit. Can you give us a little bit more, you know, whatever. But yeah, we give it to them and they go off and they do their thing and they're fantastic professionals.
So I think this will be our last question, and it's something I'm sure that we all want to know. You guys have given some amazing book recommendations, but I think we all want to know who your favorite romance authors are. Maybe top 3.
Present company excluded, I
Yes,
presume.
present
Just not to make it redundant. I mean, I love Jasmine's books. Top 3 is very hard. One of the best recent books I read was Second First Impressions by Sally Thorne. I really enjoyed that.
I love that one. I just read that a few weeks ago.
It's so cute. It is really, really stinking cute. If you are a fan of Nalini Singh, who's probably one of my favorite authors in the top 3 probably. And if you have a lot of time on your hands, go read Nalini Singh because she's got a million books out. But Big Bad Wolf by Suleika Snyder was very good. And I think a good comp for that. And oh God, Jasmine, go.
I am a huge fan of Christina Lauren.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
And I love like their most few recent books. I love them all. The Soulmate Equation came out a month or so ago, which I loved. I love The Unhoneymooners and their Christmas one, which is right over there. Oh, In a Holidays. You see, I have books in every corner of my room of my apartment. Farrah Roshan, I love her books.
Mm-hmm.
The Boyfriend Project came out last summer, and then she has a new one coming out this summer, which is called The Dating Playbook, which I also have in a different corner of my apartment. And then, I really loved, this is a debut, Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. It came out in February and is just a delight. Yeah.
And I will add, now that I've narrowed it down a little bit, but I'll add Alexis Daria to my list.
Yeah.
She has a new one coming out called A Lot Like Adios. And it's a sequel to, oh gosh, why am I blanking on the title?
Hola, you had me at Hola.
You had me at Hola. Thank you. I don't have my books everywhere, unfortunately. But that one was, I think, a fantastic book. And she's a fantastic writer. She's been writing for a long time.
Oh, and this is a 4th, but I love Alexa Martin.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Love all of her books. And she has a new one coming out that is not a romance. It's more of a like friendship book. So I'm very excited for that, called like Mom Jeans and something like that.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, you know, I wrote all those down. Thank you so much. So it is 6:01. This has been so delightful. I want Authors in Conversation for this always. It's so delightful to listen to your personalities and that you're actually friends. But now I have to say the closing things. I want to thank Jasmine Guillory and Alicia Rye so much for this amazing event. I want to let you all know again that you can buy their books at Underground Books. Please support our local independent bookstore. Give Mother Rose some love. Thank you to Penguin Random House, HarperCollins. Most of all, thank you to everyone who came tonight. This has been such a pleasure.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, thanks everyone. It was really nice. Really a pleasure.
Thank you.